Hello and welcome to another episode of The Legend of Nobunaga. Today's level is the Battle of Noda Fukushima. Now that's a name that didn't really mean anything to me when I first saw it, and I guess we'll see why when we get in. This battle is probably the most made up of the battles we've seen so far. The description says, to defeat the Miyoshi trio, whose resistance has resurfaced, and rescue your allies. Not sure what that was about at first, but we'll see. So we're facing the Miyoshi trio. We faced them before, and now they're back for some reason. Let's see what's going on.
Let us divide into two groups. Some of us should continue preparations to move on the capital.
No! Our entire force shall attack. We will return to the capital after we show the power of our forces.
There is such a thing as overconfidence.
You haven't changed, have you? Then you can lead an attack on Sakamoto. You can leave now.
I'm grumpy. So Mori is sent off to attack Sakamoto. I'll talk about what that means in a little bit.
He must be defeated if we are to end the chaos. Begin your preparations.
Sir!
So there we go. It's time to begin this stage. And there goes Yoshinari Mori. So he's gone to join a different attack group, which we won't be seeing at this stage. So two battles are going to happen simultaneously, and we're only going to control one.
It's you!
You'll find I can do the unexpected. Welcome, welcome. Come on, come closer. Much closer.
Too close.
Just what is it that you were planning?
Young Yoshino, wouldn't you maybe like to serve me? Huh?
I'm not sure I can keep up with all this. Well, what are you offering?
Oh, really? Great! Excellent! Tell me, what do you want from me? Anything.
Well, what I really want is for you to make Lord Nobunaga mine.
Ooh.
Then I would serve you.
Huh?
Easy, right?
Nobunaga?
But still, I must praise you for trying to recruit me. I see you're not as dumb as everyone thinks.
So basically, Yoshino would have accepted payment in sexual favors, but apparently
apparently
not.
Charge.
I know that. Our speed is our weapon. Our speed is our strength.
It's ironic he should say that, because the historical battle that this is based on will last for 10 years. So anything but speedy.
Good. You're all here. All right, let's get to work.
According to our scouts, this is the current situation.
It's a shame we don't have Mori anymore to say that for us. So instead, Katsuye Shibata takes over as the guy who says it. Let's have a look at the map we're facing. We're split into two groups by the looks of
In
things.
this battle, we must defeat Nagayuki and Masayasu Miyoshi and Tomomichi Iwanari.
So that's the
We
Miyoshi
must
trio.
also prevent our allied camps from being destroyed.
So we've got these random bases in the middle of
Miyoshi
nowhere.
trio are positioned in this area.
So we need to both save the bases and defeat the Miyoshi trio.
First,
we've got
let us
three
move
vague
to the aid of
objectives.
the two allied camps.
Sounds easy enough.
I'm worried that old Yoshinari is having problems over there at Sakamoto. Let's finish up quick and head on over.
Well, you're right to be worried, but
My lord,
we'll see more about
How
that
do you wish
later.
us to deploy?
So it wasn't actually Yoshinari Mori leading the attack at Sakamoto, it was Nobuharu Oda, who's Nobunaga's brother. I guess I'll talk about that at the end of the stage, because we're going to go over to Sakamoto at the end and see what's going on. So right now I'm checking out the stage. We can see we've got two bases with ally officers inside. It's Amalia Vankiri and Murashige Araki, and they're surrounded by enemy officers. So we're going to have to try and do something about that. And we start down in this bottom left hand corner behind some fences. So we've basically seemed to have arrived when on an enemy force sieging some Oda camps, which for some reason were set up in advance and were being occupied by Araki and Amalia. So the presence of Amalia is a hint that they've obviously made something up, because Amalia being a key part of any stage shouldn't be correct, because she is probably the most unhistorical character in the game. Maybe that's debatable, I don't know. Murashige Araki being here isn't so historically inaccurate because he was at the battle that I believe this stage in the game is supposed to represent. I use the word battle slightly broadly because, as I mentioned, it's more of an event that takes place over 10 years. It's like a 10-year siege of a very large castle called Ishiyama. I'm going to explain it from the beginning once the level starts. So you can see I've put an infantry component on the left hand side and told them to move into that water area, and cavalry component at the bottom. It says in the hints that a female warrior admirer of Kicho lies low nearby. I don't think I ever found what that was referring to. It also said in battle speed is everything, which I guess doesn't really mean anything. I think it was referring to the fact that if you didn't go and save your camps they would eventually be destroyed, but that should have been obvious.
With this deployment, we will destroy the enemy.
True that.
Our council is at an end. You all know what you have to do. Now go!
So I'm going to begin the stage by going to try and save those camps, and of course there's going to be a whole bunch of enemies in the way, so it's going to take a little while.
Do not leave any regrets behind! Follow me!
Off he goes. So as always I'm going to begin the stage by talking about the historical events before we look in more detail at what's happening in the actual level. I said at the end of the last episode of Legend of Nobunaga that this battle is based upon the idea that there was a Buddhist uprising that happened in late 1570 in the Setsu province. So that's the fundamental justification for this battle taking place. But the actual details of the battle itself don't really seem to be based on anything, with the possible exception of the presence of Murashige Araki. And I guess I should explain from the beginning. So we have this uprising. The Miyoshi clan and Tatsuki Saito are both involved in the uprising in some way. It's debatable whether the Miyoshi clan had decided to attack Oda and cause the uprising in order to help them, or whether the uprising occurred first and the Miyoshi clan decided to support them by invading at the same time, which is why we have to face Miyoshi here on the field instead of the rebels. To me it seems pretty likely that Miyoshi could have been the instigators, because Miyoshi, remember in the past they've been the controllers of Kyoto. They're familiar with wielding power, and they were knocked out of power by the Oda clan, so it's not unreasonable that they would want to try and get back into power with this invasion, whilst Nobunaga was busy fighting the Azai and the Asakura. So that's not inconceivable. So yes, this rebellion starts, and it's the group that's rebelling is called the Iki. So this event is called the Iki Iko. I think I said this in a previous episode, the Iko means rebellion. So the Iko Iki event is a rebellion. People often call the group the Iko Iki, which sort of means you're using the same word twice, because Iko basically means rebel group. But whatever, we have these Iki warriors, and they've holed up in their massive fortress of Ishiyama Hoganji. I think that's what it was called. I'll just call it Ishiyama. It's a huge cathedral fortress near the sea in the Setsu province. And Nobunaga basically sends about 30,000 troops to go and try and capture this place. He had no idea how many Iko warriors there were inside, or their full level of support. And of course he found that they were being supported by the Miyoshi clan. Tatsuki Saito had given them some troops and money. And the Mori clan, who still haven't really been mentioned in the game. The Mori clan are the lords of Western Honshu, so areas to the west of the area Nobunaga's operating in. And the Mori's navy is in the sea outside Setsu, and they're going to be playing a role in the historical event that this level represents. So Nobunaga attacks. He finds this huge fortress full of Iko rebels, and he decides he's going to lay siege to it. So what he does at first is he arrives during the night and starts building loads of smaller fortresses around the fort, which you can use as a base. However, whilst he's building them in the middle of the night, the Iki suddenly attack with firearm units. They all charge out and very rapidly defeat Nobunaga's forces and destroy all of the fortresses he'd begun to build. And this basically represents the defeat of Nobunaga in this case, because Nobunaga retreats and he moves his main battle group elsewhere, namely to what the game is calling Sakamoto. what historically would be more accurately called Hyanji. I forget what it's called sometimes. Haihei, I think it's called. Yes, the Haihei Monastery was where Nobunaga went after this, and that's where Yoshinari Mori is now fighting, and the game just calls it Sakamoto, which is sort of like an alternate name. Like Sakamoto is a village in the same place as Haihei Fortress. So Nobunaga is essentially defeated, but what he does is he leaves a sieging force around the castle to make sure that supplies can't get in, because his plan is to just starve the rest of the Iki out. And Murashige Araki is one of the commanders of this sieging force. So that's the link. That's the link with this level, that Murashige Araki is in this stage, is vaguely linked to history. The thing about guarding the camps, I think they just made that up just for a bit of new experience in the level, since we haven't really done this type of level before, where we have to try and save allies. You can see I have managed to get Nobunaga to save the first camp, and right at this very moment Toshie is arriving to save the second camp. And just in time in both cases, because Amalia and Murashige took heavy damage, as you can see on the left. They count as allied units rather than part of my own force, which means I can't control them directly. So I can't go and help them out if they're in danger directly. What I can do is give them orders to walk around, but I don't really bother, because after they were weakened by these initial assaults, I didn't want to risk losing them. So the first fortress was pretty easy to save, and now Toshie is pretty much hacking his way into the second one. Murashige has taken even more heavy damage, so I need to be a little bit faster than I'm being so far, and try and get all these enemy officers off Murashige. You can see he's being spammed by this Miyoshi captain. And this guy whose name I can't read anymore, there we go, Nobuyasu Atagi.
It's too late to start.
Luckily,
crying.
Koroku and his ninjas are going to do some pretty heavy damage. So let's think, is there anything more to the story I can say? As I mentioned near the beginning, this siege that Nobunaga sets up around Ishiyama Castle was to last for about 10 or 11 years, let's just say 10 years. After 5 years, he'd almost starved the fortress out. They were almost about to surrender. But what happened, this was in 1575 by the way, what happened was Yoshiaki, the shogun, who, as we've seen so far, does seem to be plotting against Nobunaga, even going so far as trying to recruit Yoshino, as we saw in the cutscene, but of course Yoshino isn't a historical character, so it's just vaguely representative of Yoshiaki's scheming. So in 1575, 5 years in the future from what we're seeing here, Yoshiaki will order the Mori fleet stationed in Setsu Bay to resupply Ishiyama Fortress and allow the Iki rebels to keep fighting Nobunaga for an additional 5 years. So this basically ties up a whole ton of Nobunaga's forces constantly sieging this castle for the years between 1570 and 1580. It did eventually end, because after another 5 years they'd almost been starved out again, and they were going to surrender to Nobunaga. And what really sealed the deal is that Nobunaga persuaded the emperor to write a letter to the head of the castle asking him to surrender. And the emperor obviously still had some authority, because they immediately agreed when he asked them to do this. And that was the end of that battle. So that was what I vaguely think this battle could be said to be representing. It's not 100% clear. So historically this battle should be a defeat for Nobunaga, but it's a victory here in the game obviously. So you can see I found this item in the middle. I assumed there would be one there when I saw on the map this little enclosure guarded by towers. I thought it looks sort of pointless, so I deliberately decided to break into it just in case an item was there, and there was indeed. So all I have to do now is push forward and attack the enemy main camp. I decided to turn my ally units into a slightly more useful position, even though they're both very, very injured, which is why I'm not going to take them on the final assault. So all I need to do is team up. It looks like there's only one enemy unit left in this final palisaded area. It's one of the Miyoshi trio. The commander, I think it's Nagayuki Miyoshi. The Miyoshi trio are, two of them are brothers I think, and the other one I believe is an adopted brother. So I think they are all supposed to be brothers of each other, although possibly only legal brothers. There we go, it is Nagayuki Miyoshi. So let's take him on, should be relatively easy with all of my units.
Well, if I give it my best.
So he's going to give it his best, but against all these units, he doesn't stand too much chance.
Masayasu is here.
But at this moment, tons of enemy reinforcements show up. It's the rest of the Miyoshi trio, basically. So only 2 units, so I've still got a good numbers advantage. Plus the enemy commander Nagayuki went down almost straight away. So now I just need to finish them off. This was a pretty easy stage in my opinion. It didn't present much of a challenge. I guess if I had been a little bit slower, maybe Amalia and Murashige would have died and there could have been some penalty for that, but I managed to save them, so everything went fine. And all of my units still had relatively high health by the end, so I was in a good position to completely destroy the remaining enemy units. And I started just using my skills at random to give them experience, as I've mentioned before. If you use officer skills, they level up. So once it gets to the end of the battle, you might as well just use them whenever you can, just to gain experience for them, really.
Nothing is impossible for me and my tactics.
You can see Mitsuhide is still sporting Tatsuoki Saito's helmet. I was expecting to see Tatsuoki Saito on the field today, since it would have been historically justified to see him on this level, but he didn't show up, unfortunately. And we're going to see why he doesn't show up, because the game takes a little bit of liberty as to what Tatsuoki Saito's involvement in the anti-Oda campaign is. So we're going to see him towards the end of this episode, basically. I won't say too much about that right now. So yeah, now I'm just finishing them off. They're not going to last too long. So as I said, Nobunaga, after his initial defeat, went off to Hieizan Cathedral. Basically, this was a huge mountain fortress beside Kyoto, and the reason he had to go there was because the Azai Asakura force, which was recently defeated at Anigawa, seeing that Nobunaga was showing signs of weakness by failing to put down the Ikkyo rebellion, they decided to attack Kyoto, go straight for the jugular, and take over control of the whole area. And this big mountaintop cathedral was where they decided to stage their attack from, and they were welcomed in by the residents of the cathedral. But the residents were very anti-Nobunaga, and they gave them lots of supplies and allowed them to menace Kyoto from atop this huge mountain. The mountain pretty much overlooks Kyoto completely. You can see this mountain from anywhere in Kyoto, for example. It's directly above it. So they had a very good position to attack the capital. So Nobunaga had to go and deal with that scenario. So there we go, we've defeated the Miyoshi trio.
Just you wait, I will get you for this. My lord, Tomomichi will follow you to the ends of the earth!
Yes,
so the same thing that happened the last time I defeated them happens, where they go off in a comedy fashion.
From the battle at Nodo Fukushima, at the castle of Sakamoto in Oumi.
So meanwhile, over near Kyoto, what's going on? Let's have a look. I guess the Azai Asakura force must be attacking.
Hold! Keep your positions!
And there's Azai himself.
Not Master Yoshinari Mori? I challenge you to a fight!
Lord Azai, is it? You are worthy of my spear.
Yeah!
So it's going to be a duel. See how this goes.
Now's our chance! Release!
Surprise! So there was Tatsuoki Saito. That's where he was. He was sitting in the corner over at Sakamoto. And he shot Yoshinari.
My lord's dream fulfilled.
So Yoshinari goes down in a blaze of glory, wearing Nobunaga's old clothes, no less.
Yes! I have killed Yoshinari Mori!
Tatsuoki's very happy. Azai seems a little bit more disgusted at that idea. I guess he's a more honourable man. Meanwhile, these guys don't know a thing.
Prepare for the celebration.
They're going to celebrate, thinking that it's a big win. Enemy officer defeated. So they're going to have to learn the truth soon enough. But first, we can rejoice in the relatively high score I got in this battle. Nearly the maximum score. It was quite an easy level. And we can have a look at some of the fun prizes I won as a result. I got almost 10,000 gold, which is quite a lot. I got this staff for Yoshino. I'm probably not going to use Yoshino, but still good to have it. I got this cool arrow scale armor, which I think is what the leader of the Miyoshi trio was wearing. I got a new type of unit called Konoichi, which basically is a female ninja, so I could try those guys out. And I got a new type of rifle unit, the Negoru rifles. So I'll see if those guys are any good. Give them to Mitsuhide Akechi if they are. Now let's check all the levels up. It's got a fair few. Koroku got 2 levels up, pretty handy. And a couple of skill levels up as well. No problem. So let's move on.
Nobunaga was victorious
see
at
how people
Setsu.
react.
However, the celebration did not last long. Word of events at Sakamoto soon reached him.
Well, there you go.
Our forces drove back the enemy. However, while dueling with Nagamasa Azai, father was shot and killed by Tatsuoki
This
Saito.
is our first meeting with Ranmaru Mori. He'll be a main character from now on.
Bastard! I will destroy him and his entire family.
A very awkward comment considering Kicho is part of his family.
I thought something like this would happen.
It is all my fault. If I hadn't been so sure of myself, this wouldn't have happened. Yoshinari!
So Nobunaga angrily sending Yoshinari on the offensive caused him to die. So Nobunaga's got the guilt on his shoulders in many ways. He'll forget about that soon enough, so
What's
it's okay.
our first move?
Now we're back to the planning stage.
My lord, as my father before me, I beg the privilege of a place at your side. I shall do my best. I shall destroy all those who oppose you.
So here's Ranmaru Mori, who is Nobunaga's page boy and the son of Yoshinari
this is
Mori.
the latest information on the situation.
So let's look at the information on the situation. Thank you, Rapping Katsuie. So now we've got some new stages to deal with. We've got Ranmaru Mori as an additional officer. We've moved forward 1 year to 1571. We've got the Sawayama Asakura Azai battle. That was a sort of not particularly significant siege. We've got a battle against the Matsunaga army. You might remember Matsunaga was that evil guy we saw a few episodes ago, and he's going to rebel against us. And over here we have the Battle of Mikawa, which is very out of place chronologically. That doesn't happen until 1573. But we've got the option of doing it, and the difficulty, it was like off the scale. So I'm sort of tempted to do that, because it's a very historically significant battle. And one of the last major battles of Takeda Shingen, the great strategist of the era. I guess it looked like it was pretty hard. I'm guessing this is one of the stages where I'm only allowed to pick like 1 or 2 of these levels, and the other one will disappear. So I'm going to have to decide which one I think is the least interesting. And I'm probably going to say Mount Tamon's going to be the least interesting right off the bat, because Matsunaga rebelling isn't too exciting. Sawayama was an important battle in the Asakura Azai War against Oda, and Mikawa was a very important battle, so I guess I'll do that. So yeah, Yoshinari's dead, but of course this is a slight perversion of what happened historically, because Yoshinari wasn't that important a character historically. In the game, Yoshinari had been with Nobunaga since Nobunaga was a child, so Nobunaga had a strong connection to him, so you can see why he was so distressed to have Yoshinari killed, and for it to be basically his fault. But really, Yoshinari was a member of the Saito clan previously, so although he's been with us since the very beginning, historically he would have only joined in, say, Chapter 3 of The Legend of Nobunaga. So Nobunaga doesn't actually know him that well. So that's the first thing that's slightly different. But what really happened at this so-called Battle of Sakamoto was that Nobunaga's brother died. That was the true tragedy. His brother Nobuharu, who was leading the forces, perished. And this was fairly recently one of Nobunaga's other brothers, whose name I forget, had died fighting rebels in the Ise province, which is a little bit close to Owari. So Nobunaga's brothers are being killed off left, right, and center, by these constant battles going in territory that Nobunaga theoretically controls, which is a little bit embarrassing for him. Although Nobunaga is now taken seriously on the wider Japanese stage, especially after the Battle of Anagawa, he proved that he had the power to beat a serious clan. The Azai and the Asakura were pretty serious clans, and to beat them in battle put Nobunaga on the map. Whereas the Battle of Okehazama, which is his previous great victory, could be seen as a fluke, and I'm sure many people did see it as sort of a fluke. He wasn't Although it propelled him to fame, he wasn't too famous. But now, after Anigawa, he is a very famous warlord. And people are pretty jealous that he controls Kyoto. He has such a cushy position in central Japan, because all the great warlords of eastern and western Japan have problems with their neighbours trying to invade them, so they can't come and claim Kyoto despite having much more powerful forces, and in many cases being much more able rulers. So it's quite unfortunate. So yes, it was Nobuharu who died, really. But Yoshinari's gone, so I can't control him as a character anymore. He's replaced by Ranmaru Mori in the game, who has the exact same stats and the exact same level, which will make him about level 3 on my playthrough, so I'm not going to use him. Ranmaru Mori, I said I was going to talk about him more when he appeared, so I'm going to save that for a future episode, just because now isn't really the time. Ranmaru was, I guess what I will say is that he had something, I think it's called a Shudo relationship. S-H-U-D-O, Shudo. And this is it's a very special type of relationship between lord and vassal. Look it up if you want. I'm going to tell you more about it the next time I come to speaking about these things. For now, I'm going to have to make some decisions about what the next stage of the Legend of Nobunaga is going to be. So until then, have a good time, and I might just see you at a level 10 difficulty battle. Who knows? Have fun!